Okay, this is the start of Roman art. We're on piece 39 today. There are 7 Roman pieces. This is the House of Vettii. It's got 3 images associated with it, and a lot here in the date. I don't know that I'd want to do the date on this one, but all right, let's dive in to the House of Vettii. It is in the city of Pompeii, and you know that Pompeii was covered by Mount Vesuvius, a volcano, in 79 CE. And when this volcano erupted, it was the heat of the volcano and the gases from the volcano that just stopped people in their tracks. This is a statue model of a human that was found in this position when it was uncovered in the 1890s. So from this archaeology, we just have this city that was in the middle of its day, and we are able to recreate scenes like this based on the archaeology, and we can see just these street scenes. And in this neighborhood right here, this house is the House of Vettii, owned by 2 brothers who had been slaves, who were called freedmen, and who had worked their way up into society. And their house is has been excavated the most thoroughly, I should say. So our further context is that from their house, we get the view of what Roman houses or domus were like. And because these 2 men were businessmen, we know that they had kind of a special relationship in the community. They would have clients come to their home, they're the patron, and the clients, I don't quite know how the wine dealership worked, but they would do business, and they had this relationship going on where the clients would support the 2 brothers in whatever political aspirations they had, and the 2 brothers would be expected to do business, with these specific clients. So they had these daily visits, establishing this relationship and doing this business, and the clients entering the home would stand right here where this blue star is, and they would look in and they would see from this view that we're seeing here in our image. So the form of this domus, this house, was that it was designed for entertainment and for commerce. Uh, it had in these large rooms, and this was kind of the focal point room right here. This is the peristyle, uh, um, and it is also known for us as a courtyard, but you can see these columns. That's what makes it called a peristyle, that it has columns outlining it. And so that form, peristyle, is the main form, the focus. So again, I have that peristyle circled here, and if we stood right here, we'd be looking through at that, and we'd be pretty impressed. In that peristyle, in that courtyard, was marble statuary. I'm going to go back and show you that. Marble statuary, fountains. This is some wealth. In addition to these permanent physical parts of the house, you would see lock boxes, uh, people's silverware displayed in these very public parts of the home, so that everybody walking in would know, hey, these people are wealthy. Um, this is an impluvium. It is a water catcher, a basin that catches the rainwater that comes down from this atrium opening. And this rainwater is used for household needs. And then this is a painting of what this might have looked like. This is not necessarily the House of Vettii here, but I want you to see that on the wall we have painting going on, and the impluvium here is catching rainwater from this atrium. Oh, and look at the Greek vase. Okay, the function of the house then is partly to show off wealth of the brothers, And it also demonstrates just their social mobility, that they moved from slaves up to free men. A piece that's not in this particular set because it's pretty outlandish, but one that really illustrates that kind of notion of, hey, we want to show you how rich we are. This is Priapus, the god of fertility, and this fresco, it was by the front door at the house of Vettii, and you can see the god of fertility is having his penis weighed here on this scale, and it's being weighed against gold, although I don't know how you can see that. At any rate, it just demonstrates we're all that and then some. Okay, and this image here shows you more of the frescoes in this house. And we are in particular looking at these two frescoes in a minute. The form of these frescoes that we see on this wall is, well, they're frescoes. And a fresco is where you take wet plaster and you cover the wall. And when the plaster is still wet, the artist comes in and paints their painting in the wet plaster. And as the wet plaster dries, well, the painting becomes pretty permanent. Like, this is 2,000 years old. The other form I want you to see in these paintings is that all of this is painted in architecture. This is not some design bump out in the wall, but the artist has painted in these, this bottom banner, this pilaster here. Here's another view of our other painting. You can see the artist has painted in this temple in the background, this big column here. And so it has, the architecture is in the painting, kind of like the grave stele of Hegeso, where she is in a domestic scene. And you know that because of the architecture in the stele. Okay, let me tell you about this picture, this image. This is the story of Pentheus. Pentheus was the king of Thebes, Thebes. And Pentheus, when he became king, wanted to ban the god Dionysus. And Dionysus was like, you ain't gonna do that. So Dionysus got all the women of Thebes, including Pentheus's mom and aunts, to go up to this mountain, Mount Cytherian. And at Mount Cytherian, the women kind of engaged in a whole bunch of debauchery. And Pentheus tried to imprison Dionysus because he did this. And you can't imprison a god. So Dionysus got out of prison, and Dionysus convinced Pentheus to go up to Mount Cytherion and look at the women and seeing what debauchery they were involved in. Well, Pentheus climbed a tree to look closer at the women, and the women saw him. And the women, who were kind of out of their minds in this debauchery, grabbed him out of the tree and then tore him apart, limb from limb. And pretty famous in the old god and goddesses story. So the name Pentheus means sorrow, kind of sad. And it was his own mother who did most of the dragging of him out of the tree and most of the killing of him. His head was then put on a spike and taken into the city of Thebes. Okay, the next painting that is in this house of Vettii is this one. So here is the god Jupiter, who's like Zeus in Greece, but the Romans borrowed the Greek gods. Here's Jupiter, who had a sexual liaison with Alcmena here. Alcmena is a mortal. Jupiter, the god, transformed himself to look like Alcmena's husband here, Amphitryon. Well, so they had intercourse, and the Alcmena got pregnant, and here is the baby, Hercules. And Juno, when she found out about this birth, was so upset because Juno is the wife of Jupiter. And so Juno put these snakes in little baby Hercules's cradle And, well, of course, it's Hercules. So Hercules gets up and kills the snakes. All right. That is the House of Vettii.